The Matrix Revolutions. Welcome back to my brief Matrix series leading up to John Wick Chapter 2 starring Keanu Reeves and Laurence Fishburne. The perfect time for me to fill in the gaps in my Matrix trilogy reviews. I already reviewed The Matrix back in the day and I just reviewed Reloaded, so let's talk about the finale of the Matrix trilogy, the one that would hopefully bring it all home, that would finally give us that Matrix film we were hoping for after the first. Unfortunately, that didn't quite happen. Do I hate The Matrix Revolutions? No. Do I think it's one of the worst movies ever made? No. Do I think it's a very disappointing sequel? Yes. And just so you know, there's going to be full spoilers for The Matrix Revolutions, so if you haven't seen these films, I would check them out and then come back and watch my review. This movie opens up with Neo in a train station. His mind is there, but his body is still back in the real world. And this place is known as Mobile Avenue, which of course is an anagram for limbo, a place between life and death. And he has to somehow get out of this place, so Trinity and Morpheus go and visit the Merovingian who resides over this train station, and by doing so, they have to press a button that says help with a P crossed out. Oh, I wonder if the Merovingian is supposed to be the devil. I mean, he's only dressed in red and black. He even says this.
We only want to talk.
Oh yes, I'm sure you do. You have fought through hell to do so.
This is one of my biggest problems with Revolutions. It's a film that has a lot of symbolism, but it's not the type of symbolism where you have to kind of dig and discover it for yourself. It's all extremely in your face, and it's so unmissable that if you honestly don't see it, you're just not paying attention. So we get a few fun action sequences, one that was kind of a precursor to what they perfected in movies like Inception and Doctor Strange. And in this movie, Agent Smith has almost assimilated the entire Matrix. Almost everyone in the Matrix now is a Smith. You wouldn't really know that unless you kind of read into the backstory of the film. It's not very clear in the movie, which is a major problem with the screenplay. There's a lot of elements that require a lot of research to understand because certain things make a lot of sense. And all these years later, I understand The Matrix Revolutions just fine. I mean, I saw this movie back in 2003. It's 2017 now, and I've seen it many times. I don't dislike The Matrix Revolutions because I don't get it. That's probably the most simple and least thought out retort that you can say to someone who doesn't share an opinion with you on a film. Oh, well, you just didn't get it, because I'm smarter than you. I've deeply analyzed Revolutions. I've watched it probably at least 10 times. I've read a lot of quotes from the Wachowskis. I've watched all the documentaries and featurettes I can get my hands on. My issue with The Matrix Revolutions is not how everything connects. It's not the overarching symbolism. It's the filmmaking on display. There's a lot of terrible dialogue in this movie that's delivered awfully by actors. There's a lot of really bad performances. There is an overabundance of characters that, while in Reloaded, took a back seat to the incredible action sequences that were in that film, here get a lot of focus because there's also an extreme lack of action in The Matrix Revolutions. There's a big, gigantic robots versus robots scene where people are piloting these things with guns that look sort of like makeshift Gundams, except they have no armor in front of them and they're just completely open to attack, which is a terrible weapon. The Sentinels are invading Zion, and Commander Locke, who by the way is an awful character, tries to stop this attack, while Neo and Trinity are stuck on a ship somewhere trying to get to the machine world because Neo is having visions of the machine world and feels that he must go there, that's where he can end the war. Now, I thought in Matrix Reloaded people wore sunglasses too much. It made it really hard to connect with our characters, and it was just not believable. They would fly off in a second, but everyone just keeps their sunglasses on. Even better than Indiana Jones can keep that hat on. But in this movie, Neo loses his physical eyes, so he wears a blindfold for the entire last half of the movie, and it makes it really hard to connect with him as a character. To me, this was a plot device to make him develop his real-world powers where he could start seeing things in the gold code of the Matrix. He suddenly was able to control Sentinels in the real world, destroying them. He had a weird connection with the Source. But as I said, there is an overabundance of characters in this movie. Captain Mifune, Captain Locke, the Council, all of these characters just feel like filler. It all just feels like stuff that could be forgotten. There's the one kid who's obsessed with Neo who gets this incredibly cheesy moment.
Yeah, I believe.
The movie just doesn't balance these characters very well. I do like Niobe, Jada Pinkett Smith. I think she's really good in this movie. I like Z and her partner running around in the catacombs, blasting the machines. I still like Link. I thought he was a better addition over Tank in Reloaded. I like the character of Link. I think he's a lot of fun. But from the 58-minute mark of this movie all the way to the 85-minute mark, Neo is nowhere to be found. He completely vanishes from this story because he's just on a ship somewhere. There's barely a connection with our hero in this movie, and from a filmmaking standpoint, it makes watching the film kind of boring. Yeah, there's a big action sequence with the Sentinels and the humans in Zion, and it's a lot of really cool special effects, but it kind of just comes off as special effects. It's a big, bloated orgy of explosions in your face that doesn't have the same impactfulness that the first film or even the second one had. Also, Agent Smith in this movie kind of becomes a mad scientist. When he's eventually able to assimilate the Oracle, he actually does this. So in trying to get to the machine world, Trinity dies, and now Neo has nothing, and he understands that he has to go find the source. And the source actually is a bunch of robots that create a giant head with a voice. I'm sorry, I can't help but see how dumb that is. It's just, the robots form a head that speaks. Here's an idea. Neo has already been shown to have a connection with these machines. He's having visions of the machine city. He's able to destroy these Sentinels with his own thoughts. Forget about the floating robot head that can talk. He should be able to learn all this on his own. This robot head with a deep voice is clearly just there for us as audience members. They could have found a much more interesting way for him to get jacked into the Matrix, but this is where the Wachowskis really fall short in screenwriting. They don't always respect their audience. They spell things out for us a lot.
I like to be reminded this city survives because of these machines. These machines are keeping us alive while other machines are coming to kill us. So we need machines and they need us.
Because sometimes it does seem like they think we're too dumb to figure it out on our own. Nevertheless, we're finally going to get the big scene where Neo and Smith fight. I've always loved the one nodding Smith in the background. He's like, yeah, you're gonna get it, Neo. There's gratefully a little bit less of the Agent Smith balloon people that were so ever present in Matrix Reloaded in this scene. There's still an overuse of CGI that doesn't really hold up anymore. But as this scene progresses, the movie becomes more confusing unless you're paying attention. Basically, Neo realizes that he can't defeat Smith and fix everything. He has to allow Smith to assimilate him, so when Smith does, since Neo was connected to the source can now use that connection to destroy all of the Smiths. The reason Neo knew what he had to do is because the Oracle inside Smith said this.
Everything that has a beginning has an end.
Which is what she said to him earlier in the film, which jogs his memory. It's also the first time that Smith has ever called him Neo and not Mr. Anderson. So Neo makes the ultimate sacrifice, essentially becoming Jesus. They even cart him away as he has his arms spread out like he's on the crucifix. There's even a big beam of light that emits from his chest like a cross. This symbolism is so heavy-handed that it just gets too much, and I wish that it was a little bit more light, where you could just sort of read into it, but it's literally just like, hey, all of this is this. So as the Matrix is rebooted and they try again and people are now given the option to free themselves if they wish, this little girl Sati apparently made a sunset for Neo. So I guess this little program, Sati, has a considerable amount of power. What does this have to do with anything? I just want to see certain things happen in this film with the characters I've grown to appreciate, but there's an overabundance of all these extra characters. I haven't even talked about Seraph or half the commanders of various ships. It's just this big, gigantic, bloated film that was very disappointing. And I'm not talking about the story connections. I'm fine with how they chose to resolve all of this. It all makes sense to me. From a filmmaking perspective, The Matrix Revolutions is a very convoluted experience with some very poor performances, some very jilted dialogue, an extreme lack of action considering Reloaded's overabundance of it, and an overarching failure to understand what made audiences connect with the first film so much. I'm gonna give The Matrix Revolutions a C. Again, not a terrible movie. As I said, I have watched this probably at least 10 times. I've analyzed it very deeply. Well guys, in both of my previous Matrix reviews, I did in fact show you a clip from one of my earliest short films that was inspired by The Matrix. And this one was very directly inspired by Matrix Revolutions. I want to say this was '04 when I decided to, alone with no one but a camera and a tripod in my old house, make a film making fun of The Matrix, and I did. I want to say I was about 15 or 16 years old here, so enjoy that. Also, since I've covered The Matrix films, even though this next film has nothing to do with John Wick Chapter 2, just for continuity's sake and my own personal OCD, I'd like to talk about the Animatrix. So that's going to be very soon. Look forward to that, guys. As always, if you like this, in a minute, you can click right here and get Stuckmanized.
Good evening, Mr. Anderson. It is lovely to see you. Smith?
It ends tonight, Smith.
I'm sure it does, Mr. Anderson. But I don't understand one thing. Perhaps you could lend me some of your knowledge. Tonight, it ends. I see, Mr. Anderson. Then we fight to the death. Why? Why is the universal question, Mr. Anderson. Why is the question asked by so many people, and so many people do not understand why this universal paradox of why has trapped us in this world of the Matrix. The answer to your question, Mr. Anderson, is an answer in itself. The answer of the question is a choice, and the choice is a choice that you must make. By the end of tonight, you will know the answer.